The first battle happened at Kepler Station, a small mining outpost on the edge of human space. General Han Wu watched from the command center on Earth as 300 human ships met 5,000 Valtharian vessels. The alien ships were beautiful and terrible, like giant silver swords cutting through space. "General, the enemy is in firing range," reported Captain Osu over the communication link. Her voice came from the bridge of the Colonial Defense Ship Horizon. "Requesting permission to engage." "Permission granted. Good luck, Captain." The battle lasted 37 minutes. Han Wu watched his ships fight with desperate courage. They used every trick in the book: surprise attacks from asteroid fields, coordinated strikes on larger vessels, sacrificial runs to damage enemy flagship weapons. It didn't matter. The Valtharian ships were too strong, their shields too powerful, their weapons too devastating. When it was over, 293 human ships were destroyed. Captain Osu's ship was among them. The Valtharians lost 12 vessels. "Sir," said Colonel Zhang Min, standing beside Han Wu's command chair, "that's not possible." "What's not possible?" "The Valtharians should have lost nothing. Maybe 1 or 2 ships if they made mistakes. But 12? Zhang Min pulled up the battle data on his screen. "Look at this. Our ships were using tactics I've never seen before. Maneuvers that shouldn't have worked." Han Wu studied the recordings. Zhang Min was right. The human ships had moved in patterns that seemed almost alien themselves. Not random, desperate attacks, but coordinated strategies that took advantage of weaknesses in Valtharian formations that shouldn't have been known. "Captain Osu was a good commander," Han Wu said slowly, "but she wasn't this good. None of them were." The second battle happened 6 hours later at New Tokyo Colony. This time, Admiral Keithvar led the attack personally. His flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was the size of a city. Its main weapon could destroy a moon. Around it, 10,000 Valtharian warships advanced against 800 human defenders. Engineer Song Jin was aboard the defense platform Atlas 7 when the HFY battle began. He had designed many of the human weapons systems, but what he saw that day confused him completely. The human ships were firing their weapons in sequences he had never programmed. They were using power settings that didn't exist in the original designs. "Computer, analyze firing pattern of ship designation Hunter 7, Song Jin ordered. "Pattern analysis complete. Warning, configuration not found in standard database." Song Jin watched as the ship Hunter 7 concentrated its fire on a specific point on a Valtharian cruiser's shield. Not the weakest point, which would be the logical target. Not the strongest point, which might overload the enemy's power system. A point that seemed random. Then the cruiser's shield collapsed completely. "That's impossible," Song Jin whispered. But it wasn't impossible. It was happening. All across the battle zone, human ships were hitting targets with precision that defied explanation. They were avoiding attacks that should have been unavoidable. They were working together like pieces of a single mind. The humans still lost. 800 ships were destroyed. The Valtharians lost 60-3. Admiral Keithvar stood on his flagship's bridge staring at the battle reports. His tactical officer, a thin Valtharian with green skin, approached carefully. "Admiral, the humans are fighting better than our intelligence predicted." "Better?" Keithvar's voice was like grinding metal. "They are still insects. We crushed them easily." "Yes, Admiral, but our losses are higher than expected. Much higher." Keithvar looked at the numbers. In 2 battles, his empire had lost 75 ships. Against a vastly inferior enemy, he should have lost perhaps 5. Something was wrong. Are they using some new technology? "No, Admiral. Their weapons and defenses are the same as our reports indicated. It's their tactics that have changed." "Show me." The tactical officer activated a holographic display. It showed the movement patterns of human ships during both battles. Keithvar watched closely. He was a warrior who had fought 100 battles across 50 different star systems. He understood combat. "This is not the work of separate commanders," he said finally. "Sir, these ships are moving as one unit, as if they share the same mind." Kethavar's red eyes narrowed. But that is impossible for humans. They are individuals. They cannot think as one. The third battle was at Mars Colony. Lieutenant Yunda was there aboard the defense cruiser Remembrance. She had been transferred from the Defiance for this assignment. The ship was smaller than the flagship but faster and more maneuverable. All units, this is Remembrance Actual, she said into her communication system. Enemy fleet approaching, 15,000 vessels. We have 600 ships to meet them. As the battle began, Yunda felt something strange happening in her mind. Information was flowing into her thoughts, not from the ship's computers or from other commanders' reports. Something else. Something that felt like memories that weren't her own. She saw the battle at Kepler Station as if she had been there. She felt Captain Osu's final moments as the horizon exploded around her. But somehow, she also felt Osu's last thoughts, her final tactical analysis, her understanding of Valtherian weaknesses that she had discovered in the seconds before her death. Fire on coordinates 274 Alpha 7, Yunda ordered. Lieutenant, there's nothing at those coordinates, her weapons officer replied. There will be in 10 seconds, fire now. The beam struck empty space. Then a Valtherian destroyer appeared, dropping out of hyperspace exactly where Yunda had predicted. The beam hit its engines before its shields could power up completely. The alien ship spun helplessly, then exploded as secondary strikes found its weapon systems around her. The human fleet was fighting with impossible coordination. Ships moved in formations that had never been practiced. Commanders gave orders based on information they shouldn't have possessed. The Valtherians found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. When the battle ended, 430 human ships were gone. The Valtherians had lost 218 vessels. Admiral Kethavar's anger was visible from across the galaxy. His bridge crew moved carefully around him, afraid to speak. The numbers were unacceptable. 3 battles, 3 victories, but the cost was rising with each engagement. Communications. Get me the human commander, he ordered. Which one, Admiral? Any of them. All of them. I don't care. The response came from Captain Lee Hyun aboard the Defiance. His ship had not participated in the Mars battle, but somehow he seemed to know everything that had happened there. Admiral Sue, Kethavar, Hyun said calmly. I assume you want to offer new terms for surrender. Terms? Kethavar laughed harshly. I offer no terms, I offer only curiosity. How are your commanders sharing tactical information so quickly? We detect no new communication systems. Perhaps we're just better than you thought. No, Kethavar said slowly. No, there is something else. Something you are not telling me. Captain Hyun smiled. There are many things we're not telling you, Admiral, just as there are many things you don't understand about humanity. I understand that you are losing. 3 battles, 3 defeats. Are we losing? Hyun asked. Your empire has 50,000 ships. You've destroyed over 2,000 of ours in 3 battles, but you've lost over 300 of your own. At this rate, we'll both be destroyed long before you claim victory. Kethavar felt something cold in his chest. The human was right. His empire had overwhelming numbers. But if the cost continued to rise, even 50,000 ships might not be enough. What are you? He whispered. We're human, Hyun replied. And you're about to learn what that really means. The communication ended, leaving Kethavar alone with his thoughts and his fears. Something was happening that his empire had never encountered before. The humans were changing with each battle, learning, adapting, growing stronger even as they died. In deep space, the human fleet regrouped. New ships arrived from Earth and the colonies to replace the ones that had been destroyed. But something else was happening too. Each new crew seemed to know things that veteran crews should know. Each ship fought like it had experience from battles it had never seen. Protocol 7 was working exactly as designed. Dr. Quan Ju had never been in a battle before. She was a scientist, not a warrior. Her job was studying alien life forms, not fighting them. But when the Valtherian fleet attacked the research station at Europa, she found herself in the middle of the war, whether she wanted to be or not. The station's defenses were minimal. 3 small patrol ships and a handful of defensive satellites. Against them came 800 Valtherian vessels, including 2 of their massive battle cruisers. It should have been over in minutes. "Dr. Kwan, we need to evacuate," Captain Seohai said over the intercom. Her voice was calm, but Kwan could hear the stress underneath. Seohai commanded the patrol ship Swift Arrow, and she was preparing for a fight she couldn't win. "I need 5 more minutes to finish the data transfer," Kwan replied. She was downloading decades of research on alien biology. If humanity survived this war, the information might be crucial. "We don't have 5 minutes." "Then give me 3. Outside the station, the battle began. Kwan watched through the laboratory windows as the 3 human ships rushed toward the enemy fleet. It looked like 3 insects attacking a swarm of giants. She expected to see them destroyed immediately. Instead, she saw something impossible. The Swift Arrow suddenly changed direction, diving toward one of the battle cruisers at an angle that seemed random. The ship's weapons fired not at the cruiser's hull but at empty space beside it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a squadron of Valtherian fighters appeared, dropping out of hyperspace directly into the weapons fire. 6 alien ships exploded before they could react. "How did she know they were coming?" Kwan whispered. The second patrol ship, Star Chaser, was performing maneuvers that defied physics. Its pilot was flying like someone who had been fighting Valtherian ships for years. Every turn avoided enemy fire by the smallest possible margin. Every attack hit weak points in alien shields that shouldn't have been visible to human sensors. Major BAE-1, commanding the 3rd ship Lightbringer, was conducting what looked like a conversation with his weapon system. Kwan could see him, on the communication screen, talking to his ship's computer as if it were alive. "Target the 3rd ship from the left," she heard him say. "No, the one behind it, the one that hasn't fired yet." "Sir, there are 20 ships that haven't fired yet," his gunner replied. "The one with the damaged power coupling." "How do you know it has a damaged power coupling?" "Because I can see it." But that was impossible. Human sensors couldn't detect internal damage on Valtherian ships at that range. Yet when Lightbringer fired, the targeted vessel's shields failed instantly and the ship exploded in a ball of blue fire. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, all 3 human ships were destroyed along with the Europa station. Dr. Kwanju managed to escape in an emergency pod just before the station was vaporized. But the Valtherians had lost 147 ships. Admiral Kethvar stood in his private chambers aboard the Eternal Dominion, staring at a star map of human space. Red markers showed where battles had been fought. Each red marker represented a victory for his empire. Each red marker also represented losses that shouldn't have happened. "Enter," he said when the door chimed. His intelligence officer, Commander Feltar, walked in carrying a data tablet. The Valtherian was younger than Kethvar, with darker silver skin and 3 arms instead of 4. He had lost his 4th arm in a battle against the Zephyrian rebels 10 years earlier. "Admiral, I have the analysis you requested." "Show me." Beltar activated the tablet and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed battle patterns from the last dozen engagements. "The human tactical improvement is accelerating. In the first battle, they performed at roughly 60% of their expected skill level. By the 10th battle, they were performing at 200%. 200% of what? Of what should be possible for their technology and training level." Feltar manipulated the display, showing ship movements in 3 dimensions. "Look at this engagement near the asteroid belt. The human commander executed a flanking maneuver that required knowledge of our fleet positioning that he couldn't have possessed." Kethvar studied the display. "Are they using spies?" "No, Admiral. We would detect infiltration. This is something else." Feltar changed the display to show communication patterns. "They're sharing information somehow, but not through any technology we understand." "Explain." "Watch this." The display showed 2 human ships in different parts of the same battle. Ship Alpha engages one of our cruisers and discovers that its shield generator has a flaw in the lower port section. Ship Alpha is destroyed 30 seconds later, but look what happens next. The display showed Ship Beta, operating 2 million kilometers away from where Ship Alpha had died. Ship Beta immediately targeted the same cruiser, aiming specifically at the lower port shield generator. Ship Beta had no communication with Ship Alpha, Veltar continued. No sensor data that would reveal the shield flaw, no reason to know that information existed. Yet somehow it acted on intelligence that died with Ship Alpha. Kethvar felt something cold crawling up his spine. How many times have you observed this pattern? Every battle, Admiral. Every single engagement. The humans are learning from their dead. Colonel Jiang Min was fighting on the surface of New Sol Colony when he first felt it happen. The Valtherians had landed ground forces, and human defenders were fighting a desperate battle in the colony streets. Jiang Min was leading a squad of 12 soldiers through the wreckage of what had been a shopping district. "Contact front," shouted Sergeant Kim Yule, the squad's heavy weapons specialist. A group of Valtherian soldiers had appeared around a corner, their forearms carrying weapons that could punch through human armor like paper dot. The firefight should have been quick and deadly. The aliens had better weapons, better armor, and better tactical position. But as the battle began, Jiang Min felt strange memories flowing into his mind. Memories of other battles, other streets, other squads fighting similar enemies. He remembered, fighting these same Valtherian soldiers before, even though he had never seen them. He knew exactly how they would move, where they would take cover, what weapons they would use. The knowledge came from somewhere else. Someone else who had faced these enemies and learned their patterns before dying. Yule. Suppressive fire on. "The building with the red door," Jiang Min ordered. "Everyone else move left. The alley behind the fountain." "Sir, that alley is a dead end," replied Corporal Li Bo. "No, it's not. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to the sewer system. The Valtherians don't know about it. They found the tunnel exactly where Jiang Min had said it would be. The squad used it to circle around behind the enemy soldiers. When they attacked from an unexpected direction, the Valtherians were caught completely off guard. As the alien soldiers fell, Jiang Min felt their deaths too. Not like human deaths, but different, colder. Their final moments taught him more about Valtherian tactics, about their equipment, about their weaknesses. All across the colony, human soldiers were fighting with knowledge they shouldn't have possessed. They knew which buildings the aliens would use for sniper positions. They knew which vehicles were heavily armored and which ones only looked dangerous. They knew exactly how long Valtherian soldiers could fight before their environmental suits needed recharging. The battle for New Sol Colony lasted 3 days. The humans lost, but they made the Valtherians pay a terrible price for victory. When it was over, the aliens controlled a ruined city and had learned that conquering humanity was becoming more expensive. With each battle, Captain Co. Hai had escaped from the Europa battle in a damaged patrol ship. Now she was aboard the heavy cruiser Determination, serving as tactical officer under Commander Park Sol. The ship was part of a fleet defending the approaches to Earth itself. "Captain Co., I want your opinion on something," Park Sol said. They were in the ship's tactical center, studying displays that showed the approaching Valtherian fleet. "Of course, Commander. I've been reviewing your battle reports from Europa. You anticipated enemy movements that should have been unpredictable. How?" Seo Hai was quiet for a long moment. She had been asking herself the same question. "I'm not sure, Commander. During the battle, I started receiving what felt like tactical data from other engagements, information I shouldn't have had access to." "Information from where?" "From other battles. Other commanders." Seo Hai paused, then spoke more quietly. "From commanders who had died." Park Sol stared at her. "That's impossible." "Yes, it should be. But I could feel their final moments, their last thoughts, their understanding of enemy tactics that they gained just before." She didn't finish the sentence. "Captain, do you believe the dead are somehow communicating with the living?" "I don't know what I believe anymore, Commander. I only know that we're fighting better than we should be able to. And the knowledge that helps us win is coming from somewhere." Dr. Lim A was monitoring the conversation from her position in the ship's medical bay. As the fleet's neural interface researcher, She had been studying the reports of improved tactical performance across all human forces. What she was hearing from Captain HFY confirmed her worst fears. Protocol 7 was working. But it was working too well. When Park Sol and HFY finished talking, Lim sent a priority message to Earth. Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, staring at the massive holographic display that showed the edge of human space. 50,000 alien warships waited there like hungry wolves. Each ship was twice the size of humanity's largest vessel. Their dark hulls gleamed with weapons that could turn a planet into dust. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Valtherian fleet," said Lieutenant Yoon Da from her position at the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Hyun could see the fear in her eyes. "Put it through," Hyun ordered. The air above the bridge shimmered and a hologram appeared. Supreme Admiral Kethvar of the Valtherian Empire stood before them. He was tall and broad, with silver skin that looked like metal armor. His forearms were crossed over his chest and his red eyes burned with anger. When he spoke, his voice was like thunder. "Humans," Kethvar said with disgust. "You have had your time to think. 72 of your hours have passed. The Valtherian Empire has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We control 847 star systems. Your pitiful species controls only 24 worlds, yet you dare to refuse our generous offer of surrender." Dr. Park Yoon stepped forward. As the Chief of Human Defense Command, she had been chosen to speak for all of humanity. She was a small woman compared to the alien admiral, but she did not show fear. "We have considered your offer, Admiral Kethvar," Park Yoon said calmly. "Earth and all human colonies decline to surrender. We will defend our freedom." The alien admiral's eyes grew brighter with rage. His forearms uncrossed and his hands formed fists. "Freedom? You speak of freedom while floating in the void with your tiny ships? We have weapons that can crack moons. Our shields can stop your strongest missiles. Our warriors have conquered races far stronger than yours." "Perhaps," Park Yoon replied, "but they were not human." Kethvar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Human pride will be your destruction. Look at your forces, insects. We count your ships. 3,000 vessels against our 50,000. Your largest ship carries weapons that would barely scratch our smallest fighter. What do you have that we should fear?" Commander Kim Tae moved closer to the display. He was the head of special operations, a man who had fought in every human conflict for the past 20 years. Scars covered his face from battles on distant worlds. "We have something your empire has never faced before, Admiral." "And what is that, scarred one?" Kim Tae smiled coldly. "Desperation, and the will to make you remember this day for the rest of your empire's existence." The alien admiral studied the human commander for a long moment. Something flickered in his red eyes. For just a second, it might have been respect. Then the moment passed. "Very well," Kethvar said. "You choose death over honor. The Valtherian Empire will grant your wish. In 1 hour, our fleet will advance. Your worlds will burn. Your children will serve our empire as slaves. Your names will be forgotten." The hologram disappeared, leaving the bridge in silence. Ambassador Choi Bin, Earth's diplomatic envoy, stepped out of the shadows where he had been watching. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. "Captain Dr. Park, Commander Kim, are we certain this is the right choice? 50,000 ships against 3,000. The math is simple." Park Yoon turned to face him. "Ambassador, you've seen the terms they offered. Complete surrender. All humans to become workers for their empire. Our children taken from their parents to be raised as servants. Our planet stripped of resources. That is not life. That is slow death. But if we fight, it will be fast death for everyone," Choi Bin said quietly. Captain Hyun walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, he could see Earth in the distance. The blue and white planet looked so peaceful from here. No sign of the billions of people living their lives on the surface. People who were counting on him and others like him to protect them. "Ambassador," Hyun said without turning around, "do you know why they call this ship the Defiance?" "No, Captain." Because when the ship was built, the engineers said it was impossible. The weapons were too heavy. The armor was too thick. The engines were too small. Everyone said it couldn't work. Yun turned to face the others. But it does work. Because sometimes impossible things happen when people refuse to give up. Lieutenant Yun Da looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting movement in the Valtharian fleet. They're beginning to advance. How long until they reach our outer defenses? 6 hours at their current speed. Commander Kim Tae activated his communication device. All human forces, this is Special Operations Command. Execute Protocol 7. I repeat, execute Protocol 7. Ambassador Choi Bin frowned. Protocol 7? I'm not familiar with that designation. Dr. Park Yoon and Captain Hyun exchanged looks. It's classified, Ambassador, Park Yoon said. Something we've been preparing for situations exactly like this. What kind of preparation? The kind that changes everything, Kim Tae replied, dot across human space. The message went out. On 24 worlds, in space stations, aboard ships both military and civilian, humans received the same order. Protocol 7 was active. Most people didn't know what it meant. They only knew it was something important, something that had been planned for years in secret. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Hyun gave his orders. All ships prepare for battle, set course for the outer rim. We're going to meet them halfway. Captain, Yun Da said, shouldn't we wait for them to come to us? Let them fight through our defenses? No, Lieutenant. If we're going to do this, we do it right. We go to them. The ship's engines roared to life. Around them, the human fleet began to move. 3,000 ships against 50,000. Any military strategist would call it suicide. But these were humans, and humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. As the Defiance jumped to hyperspace, followed by the rest of the fleet, Dr. Park Yoon sent a final message to Earth. Tell everyone that we go to fight for the future of humanity. Tell them that whatever happens, we will not surrender, and tell them that this is only the beginning. The message reached Earth just as the planet's defenses came online. Massive orbital stations powered up their weapons. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bases. Ground-based missile systems armed themselves. Everyone knew the aliens were coming. Everyone knew the odds were impossible. But they also knew they were human. And humans had a long history of doing impossible things. In the deep space between the stars, 50,000 alien warships advanced toward human territory. Their crews were confident. They had done this before, many times. Other species had fought back. Other species had been brave. All of them had fallen in the end. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. What they didn't know was that Protocol 7 was not just a military command. It was the activation of something that would change the nature of war itself. What they didn't know was that they were not fighting individual humans. They were about to face something that had never existed before in the galaxy's history. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same. Captain Lee Hyun knew it was a suicide mission before he gave the order. The UES Defiance and 27 other human ships were about to attack the Eternal Dominion directly. Admiral Kethvar's flagship was protected by 3,000 escort vessels and defensive systems that could destroy planets. All ships, this is Defiance Actual, Hyun said into his communication system. We know the odds. We know what this mission costs. But if we can disable their command ship, we buy time. For Earth. Lieutenant Yun Da looked up from her tactical station. She had been transferred back to the Defiance after the battle at Mars Colony. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the enemy flagship. They're powering up something big. The planet killer weapon? Commander Kim Tae said grimly. He was aboard the Defiance for this final assault. They're going to use it on Earth. Through the bridge windows, they could see their target. The Eternal Dominion was the size of a city, its hull covered with weapons and shield generators. Around it, the escort fleet moved in perfect formation. It looked impossible to penetrate. Begin the attack, Hyun ordered. What happened next surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. The 28 ships moved with coordination that seemed telepathic. They split into groups that attacked from angles calculated to confuse the enemy's targeting systems. Each group used tactics learned from previous battles, tactics that had cost other human ships their lives to discover. But this time was different. This time, the knowledge came not just from human defeats, but from Valtharian defeats as well. Every time an alien ship had been destroyed, human commanders had observed and learned. Now they used that knowledge against the Empire's most powerful vessel. The battle was chaos. Human ships dove through walls of enemy fire, their pilots performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. The Defiance itself took a direct hit from a weapon that should have vaporized it, but somehow its shields held long enough for the ship to reach the Eternal Dominion's docking bay. All hands, prepare for boarding action, Hyun announced. The ship crashed through the flagship's defensive barriers and landed hard inside the alien docking bay. Emergency lights flashed as atmosphere rushed out through the breach. Hyun led a team of 50 Marines into the enemy ship, fighting through corridors filled with Valtharian soldiers. Commander Kim Tae was beside him, along with Lieutenant Yoon Da and a dozen others. They moved through the alien ship like they had been there before, somehow knowing which passages led to the command center and which ones were traps. This way, Kim Tae said, turning down a corridor that looked identical to all the others. How do you know? Asked Sergeant Ryu-san, one of the Marines. I don't know how I know, Kim Tae replied. But I know. They found Admiral Kethvar on the flagship's bridge surrounded by his command crew. The alien admiral stood over 2 meters tall, his 4 arms holding weapons that hummed with deadly energy. His red eyes blazed with fury as the humans burst into his sanctuary. So, Kethvar said in his thunderous voice, the insects have come to die in the heart of my ship. We've come for answers, Captain Hyun replied. The battle on the bridge was brief but savage. Valtharian soldiers fought with desperate courage, but the humans moved like they could predict every action. When it was over, half the human boarding party was dead, but Admiral Kethvar was captured. They brought him to the Defiance's detention center, a small room with force field barriers and monitoring equipment. Kethvar sat in a chair designed for his alien physique, his 4 arms secured with energy restraints. You fight well for insects, he said to Captain Hyun. We fight well for humans, Hyun corrected. Tell me how you do it. Do what? Share tactical information across your fleet without detectable communication. My best intelligence officers cannot explain it. Kethvar leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. Your commanders know things they should not know. They react to situations they have never encountered. They learn from battles they never fought. Captain Hyun exchanged glances with Commander Kim Tae and Lieutenant Yoon Da. The question they had all been dreading had finally been asked directly. Perhaps we're just better warriors than you expected, Hyun said. No, Kethvar replied firmly. I have fought better warriors. The Zephyrian Empire had soldiers who could kill 10 of mine in single combat. The Crystal Hierarchies had ships that could destroy our dreadnoughts, but they all fell to superior numbers and strategy. You are different. You are becoming something else. Dr. Park Yoon entered the detention center, followed by Dr. Yang Ri, a woman Hyun had never seen before. Yang Ri was small and elderly, with gray hair and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of terrible knowledge. Admiral Kethvar, Park Yoon, said, I believe it's time you learned the truth about humanity. Dr. Park, Hyun said quietly, are you sure about this? The Admiral is correct. We are becoming something else, something that has never existed in this galaxy before. Park Yoon gestured to Yang Ri. Dr. Yang created the system that makes it possible. Yang Ri stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. 30 years ago, we began a project called the Collective Consciousness Network. We knew that one day, humanity would face an enemy we couldn't defeat through conventional warfare. We needed an advantage that no other species possessed. Kethvar's red eyes fixed on the elderly scientist. What kind of advantage? The ability to learn from death itself, Yang Ri replied. Every human soldier, pilot, and commander has a neural interface implanted at birth. Most people don't even know it exists. It monitors brain activity, records memories, and transmits that information through quantum entanglement to a central processing system. When a human dies in battle, Dr. Park Yoon continued, their final memories, their tactical knowledge, their understanding of enemy weaknesses, all of it is instantly shared with every other human in the network. Kethvar stared at them in horror. You mean your dead continue to fight? In a way, yes, Yang Ri said. Every human who has died fighting your empire has taught us something new. Every destroyed ship has made the remaining ships more dangerous. Every lost battle has prepared us for the next one. That's impossible, Kethvar whispered. Consciousness cannot survive death. Individual consciousness, no, Yang Ri agreed. But knowledge can. Experience can. The accumulated wisdom of everyone who has fallen in this war flows through every human still alive. Lieutenant Yoon Da spoke for the first time. Admiral, when I destroyed your stealth ship at Europa, I knew where to fire because Captain Osu had figured out your cloaking weakness moments before her ship exploded. When Commander Kim Tae led us through your flagship, he knew the way because other humans had explored similar ships during boarding actions that failed. The human you're talking to right now, Captain Hyun said, looking directly at Kethvar, contains the memories and experiences of thousands of humans who died fighting your empire. We are not individuals anymore, we are something new. Kethvar slumped in his chair, the weight of understanding crushing down on him. You cannot be killed because death only makes you stronger. That's correct, Dr. Yang Ri said. Every engagement with your forces teaches us more about your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. The more humans you kill, the more dangerous the survivors become. But why tell me this now? Kethvar asked. Captain Hyun smiled grimly. Because we want you to understand what you're truly fighting. Your empire has 50,000 ships. You've destroyed thousands of ours. But we're not the same species that you attacked weeks ago. We're evolving with every battle. We wanted you to know, Commander Kim Tae added, that this war will not end the way you expected. You're not fighting a conventional enemy. You're fighting the accumulated wisdom of everyone who has ever died defending humanity. Admiral Kethvar looked around the detention center, seeing the humans with new eyes. They stood there calmly without hatred or anger. They had revealed their greatest secret to him not out of pride, but out of something far more terrifying. Confidence, and what happens now, he asked. Now, Captain Hyun said, you have a choice to make. Admiral Kethvar sat in the detention center for 3 days, thinking about what he had learned. The humans fed him, gave him water, and treated him with respect. They didn't interrogate him or demand information about Valtherian military secrets. They simply waited. On the 4th day, Captain Lee Hyun returned with an offer. We want to send you back to your fleet, Hyun said. Keth quote. Var looked up in surprise. You're releasing me? We're giving you a choice. You can return to your ships and continue this war, knowing what you now know, or you can help us end it. End it how? By making your people understand what they're really fighting. Dr. Yang Ri entered the room carrying a small device. Admiral, we'd like you to experience something before you decide. What is that? A neural interface. Not like the ones our people have. This one will let you see what we see. Feel what we feel when we access the collective memory. Kethvar backed away as much as his restraints allowed. You want to put one of your devices in my mind? Temporarily, Yang Ri assured him. Just for a few minutes, so you can understand what we've become. And if I refuse, then we take you back to your fleet unchanged, Captain Hyun said. The war continues. More of your people die. More of ours die. And humanity becomes something even more dangerous with each passing day. Kethvar stared at the device in Yang Ri's hands. It looked harmless, like a small metal disc, but he knew it represented something that would change his understanding of the universe forever. Will it hurt? No, Yang Ri said gently. It will only show you the truth. After a long moment, Kethvar nodded. The device attached to his forehead, like a cold metal hand. For a second, nothing happened. Then the universe exploded into his mind. He felt the death of Captain Osu as her ship burned around her, but also her final moment of understanding about Valtherian cloaking technology. He experienced Commander Patel's last breath as his fighter was destroyed, along with his discovery of a weakness in Valtherian fighter formations. He lived through 1,000 deaths and 1,000 final lessons. But more than that, he felt the connections. He experienced what it was like to be part of something larger than himself. Every human who had ever died in the war was still there, still fighting, still learning, still sharing their knowledge with the living. By all the stars, Kethvar whispered when the device was removed. You're not individuals anymore. You're a single organism spread across millions of bodies. That's one way to describe it, Captain Hyun said. But we're still human. We still feel love, fear, hope, anger. We've just learned to share those feelings with each other. And our deaths, Dr. Yang Ri added quietly, teach us how to prevent more deaths. Every sacrifice becomes wisdom that protects others. Kethvar struggled to process what he had experienced. Why show me this? Because you need to understand what will happen if this war continues, Commander Kim Tae said, entering the room. Every Valtherian ship you destroy teaches us how to destroy more Valtherian ships. Every planet you conquer shows us how to defend other planets. You're not just fighting humans anymore. You're fighting the accumulated knowledge of everyone who has ever opposed your empire. But we have 50,000 ships, Kethvar protested. And we have something you don't, Captain Hyun replied. We have the ability to turn death into education. Every battle makes us stronger. How many battles can your empire afford to win if each victory costs you more than the last? President Moon Kang appeared on the detention center's communication screen. He was an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle voice, but Kethvar could see the steel underneath. Admiral Kethvar, Moon Kang said, I wanted to speak with you directly. You are the leader of the human government? I am. And I want to offer your empire a choice. What kind of choice? Peace. Not surrender, not dominance. True peace between our species. Kethvar laughed bitterly. Your species has perhaps 3 million ships across all your colonies. My empire has 50,000 warships. Why would we choose peace when we can have victory? Because victory is impossible, Moon Kang said simply. You can destroy every human ship. You can conquer every human world. You can kill every human being in the galaxy. But you cannot kill what we have. Become. Explain. Commander Shinbo, the last human negotiator, appeared beside President Moon Kang on the screen. Admiral, your empire rules by conquest. You defeat a species, and they surrender or die. But what happens when you face a species that becomes stronger through defeat? That's impossible. Is it? Shinbo asked. Your own experience shows otherwise. How many battles have you won? How much has each victory cost you? Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. The numbers were undeniable. His fleet had won every engagement, but the cost kept rising. What had started as an easy conquest was becoming an expensive war of attrition. We could withdraw, he said finally. Leave human space and never return. You could, President Moon Kang agreed. But would your empire accept that? Would they allow humanity to exist knowing what we've become? And what have you become? Kethvar asked. Captain Lee. Hyun spoke, but his voice carried the weight of millions of others. We have become the first species in galactic history to conquer death itself. Not by avoiding it, but by making it serve life. Every human who has ever died defending our worlds is still with us. Their knowledge, their sacrifice, their determination flows through every survivor. Do you understand what that means for your empire? Dr. Yang Ri asked. We don't just remember our own battles anymore. We remember every engagement with every species you've conquered. The Zephyrians who fought you a century ago, some of them survived and eventually joined human colonies. When they died, their Knowledge of your tactics became our knowledge. Kethavar's eyes widened in horror. You have the memories of all our enemies. Everyone who has ever opposed the Valtherian Empire and lived long enough to share their experiences with us, President Moonkang confirmed. Every weakness, every tactical flaw, every strategic mistake your empire has made in 1,000 years of conquest is now part of our collective memory. But we're not interested in revenge, Captain Hyun said. We're interested in survival. And we believe your empire can be part of that survival. How? Commander Shinbo leaned forward. By becoming the first species to join us voluntarily, by helping us build something new in this galaxy. Not an empire based on conquest, but a collective based on cooperation. You want us to become like you? We want you to become the best version of yourselves, President Moonkang said, just as war taught us to become the best version of ourselves. Admiral. Kethvar stared at the humans surrounding him. Warriors, scientists, diplomats, leaders, all of them connected to something larger than themselves. All of them carrying the wisdom of everyone who had died to protect humanity. And if we refuse? Then the war continues, Captain Hyun said sadly. Our species will keep fighting, keep learning, keep growing stronger with each defeat. Your empire will win battles but lose the war, because you're not fighting individuals anymore. You're fighting the concentrated knowledge and determination of an entire species that has learned to make death serve life. The choice is yours, Admiral, President Moonkang said. Peace and partnership or war without end against an enemy that becomes more dangerous every time you hurt it. Kethvar closed his eyes and thought about his empire. Proud, strong, victorious, for 10,000 years. But also rigid, unchanged, convinced of its own superiority. What would happen when that empire met a species that grew stronger through suffering? I need to think, he said finally. Of course, Captain Hyun said. Take all the time you need. But remember, Admiral, every day this war continues, humanity learns something new. Every battle teaches us more about how to defend ourselves. And every death adds another voice to our collective wisdom. 3 days later, Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the human fleet that had brought him home. The Defiance floated nearby, its battle scars visible but its weapons powered down. Admiral, his communications officer said, the human fleet is requesting permission to speak. Open the channel. Captain Lee Hyun appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Kethvar could see the bridge of the Defiance. It looked small and primitive compared to Valtherian technology. But Kethvar now understood that appearances were deceiving. Admiral, Hyun said, have you made your decision? Kethvar looked around his own bridge at his crew. Loyal soldiers who had served the Empire faithfully. They deserved to know the truth about what they were fighting. I have reached a conclusion, Kethvar said slowly. The Valtherian Empire has ruled through strength for 10,000 years. Today we have met something stronger than strength. We have met wisdom born from sacrifice. He paused, then continued. The war is over. Not because we have been defeated, but because we have learned. The Empire will withdraw from human space, and we will send ambassadors to begin negotiations for a new kind of relationship between our peoples. Thank you, Admiral, Captain Hyun said. You've made the right choice for both our species. Perhaps, Kethvar replied. Time will tell. But I know this. Humanity has shown us something we never expected to see. You have shown us how to turn death into life, defeat into victory, individual sacrifice into collective strength. And you've shown us something as well, Hyun said.